Great. Welcome, everyone, to the Norfolk Oaks Community Council meeting for the month of January 2021. Happy New Year to all of you, particularly those that I haven't seen since last year. We're going to proceed with tonight's meeting with roll call. Sandy, if you can help us with that, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Chair Everardo Rodriguez.
Present.
Vice Chair Juan Carlos Prado.
Present.
Council Member Beatriz Cerrillo.
Present.
Council Member Linda Lopez.
Present.
Council Member Blair Whitney.
Here, present.
Council Member Jennifer Ruiz. Council Member Joni Gillespie. And Council Member Brooks Esser.
Present, Sandy.
Thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. For public comment, anyone may speak up to 2 minutes on any topic not on the agenda tonight. If you wish to do so, you can raise your hand so that Sandy can unmute you. And the council may not discuss or take action on items that are not on the agenda tonight. Is there anybody who has public comment to share?
Okay, we will now be using the raise hand feature on Zoom. And so if you have any public comments, please go ahead and raise your hand now. Just a second. I don't see any hand. Oh, I see one raised hand. Melissa, can you go ahead and unmute? I'll ask you to unmute, and then you can go ahead and start talking as soon as you see the clock. Just 1 second, please. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Thank you, Melissa. You may now begin.
Hi, I just wanted to introduce myself. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have my camera on either. I don't know what's going on. Okay, well, anyway, my name's Melissa. I'm from the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission, and I'm excited to be here tonight and develop a relationship with your council and find ways we can work together. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Any other public comments? I don't see any more raised hands. Back to you, Chair. Oh, actually, excuse me. Victor, are there any public comments on the phone line?
Thanks, Sandra. I don't see any at the moment.
Okay, thank you so much. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And just briefly, to welcome Melissa Wilson. I know that you're just starting your new job, Melissa, so we want to welcome you. We'll be excited to meet you at some point. But you know, we are the Norfolk Oaks community. We're here and we'd love to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna quit and then rejoin and see if I can get video going. So I'll be back in a moment. Thank you.
Melissa, before you quit, let me try to promote you to as panelist. Just a second.
Oh, okay.
And now you should be able to turn on your camera.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I just didn't know you were attending. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great.
All right, and excuse me, moving on with the agenda, we'll go to the third item. We have a presentation on childcare facilities ordinances. This presentation is brought to us by Camille Leung, Senior Planner for Planning and Building. Please go ahead, Camille.
Good evening, North Fair Oaks community council members, as well as the public. Thank you for having me make this presentation to you. I am a senior planner at the County of San Mateo Planning and Building Department. We've been working on this ordinance for childcare facilities for many years now. And I wanted to thank Sarah Kinahan, who is on this call, as well as Kristen Anderson, who are from the childcare community, and they're experts in that field, and they advised very much on this ordinance, as well as Randy Torrios from Supervisor Pine's office. And I also Lisa was also the Deputy Community Development Director, was also very instrumental in the creation of this ordinance. The goal of this presentation today is to provide you an overview of the draft child care ordinance, as well as to answer any questions that you or the public might have, and to collect the feedback and to hopefully get your recommendation tonight. So let me share my screen. Start the presentation. Can everyone see this? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this ordinance would apply just in the unincorporated areas of San Mateo County, including North Fair Oaks. It would not be applicable within this areas within cities of San Mateo County. It would be applicable in areas of the coastal zone as well as Bayside areas. Yeah. So the current regulation, we don't actually have a child care facilities comprehensive regulation. It's a regulation that is a bit patchwork. We do allow, and the state allows, small family daycare homes, which are residences that actually provide childcare services out of the childcare provider's home for up to 8 children, and that does not require a planning permit. Also, large family daycare homes, which are also residences in which the childcare provider provides services to up to 14 children. Those are allowed, but with a ministerial permit under county regulations. However, the state, when they adopted SB 234 just a little bit over a year ago, made that use allowed by right. So our ministerial process is no longer applicable. And ministerial permit simply means it's different from no planning permit required. Ministerial permit is more of like a checklist permit process, and it doesn't require discretion or public a notice or really an appeal. It's just really a checklist, and then the permit's granted. And then the kind of facility really that is the focus of this ordinance are childcare centers, which are not located in anyone's residence. And it's a facility that provides childcare services. And it may be in a house, but that house would no longer house a family as a residence. Within North Fair Oaks, the childcare center uses are allowed in institutional North Fair Oaks zoning district, the C2 North Fair Oaks zoning district, and the commercial mixed use 3 zoning district. However, in residential zoning districts, childcare centers require a use permit, which can be an exhaustive process requiring permit fees, an application process, a public hearing, public noticing, and an appeals process. So typically expensive and rather time consuming. And then also there's specific regulations within different zoning districts of the county where a use permit is required for childcare services. So in a 2017 Child Care Preschool Needs Assessment for San Mateo County, the county's Office of Education put together this needs assessment and found generally that the county had a large deficit for childcare services. And the largest deficits were found in Burlingame, Redwood City, Daly City, Menlo Park, Montera, and Pacifica. So Redwood City is identified there. And then specifically within the 2 zip codes that make up North Fair Oaks, in the 94025 Menlo Park zip code, only 37% of the demand for infant and toddler spaces is met by existing services. And as far as for preschool demand, only 47% of that demand is met in the Redwood City zip code, and only 77% of the demand is met in the Menlo Park zip code. So I explained this a little bit in terms of the current challenges with our regulation. There's no countywide regulation. It's a bit of a patchwork. It's outdated. It does conflict with our state regulations, as I had pointed out, for large family daycare homes. There's also other conflicts. And then use permits can be costly and time consuming and unpredictable in terms of someone, a childcare provider, not knowing whether they're going to be able to reap profits from their investment in a use permit application. So the overarching goal of the draft childcare ordinance is really to expand and incentivize childcare services within San Mateo County. So the goal of the ordinance is to replace the patchwork, make the ordinance consistent with state requirements, expedite the provision of childcare centers under compatible conditions, and to identify which conditions are the most compatible with uses of the neighborhood, and try to minimize those impacts that can be associated with childcare centers. And also to provide a program to authorize existing unpermitted childcare facilities, although we haven't identified any, and also to provide incentives for childcare centers to be located within employment centers. So where you have a lot of offices, try to incentivize that kind of development to incorporate a childcare center, as well as development that's a transit center to incorporate a childcare within it or nearby it. So under the new ordinance, if it is adopted, there would be continue to be no permits required for small and large family-based, home-based, basically daycare homes. The new ordinance would establish a ministerial, which is more that checklist process for childcare centers under certain circumstances. In order to minimize environmental impacts, we based the criteria essentially on environmental criteria from the California Environmental Quality Act, and also tried to identify where childcare centers could locate with the least impact, and that would be within existing buildings of a similar use, purpose, intensity, and parking need. So institutional use, which is more of like a school or a church use, would be an example of that, or a commercial use where there's, say, already traffic associated with that use, or also next to residential that can serve the residential use. Also, minor additions would be allowed if they meet the criteria. It does maintain a use permit process for projects that do not meet the criteria, but it does streamline that use permit process to eliminate the appeals process. So when a project is appealed, it can go to the next level of government review. Perhaps another most of the times another additional public hearing, which itself could be appealable to the next level up. So that furthers the review process for a childcare center. And then it also eliminates the need to renew the use permit after the end of the term of the permit. So typically a permit term of a use permit, it's like, say, 5 years, 5 to 10 years. And whenever the renewal comes up, it's always a little bit of a risk for the childcare, more than a little bit of a risk for the childcare center in terms of whether they know whether they're still going to be able to open up and provide those services. So essentially, the ministerial permit process is aimed at commercial properties, institutional properties, commercial and mixed use zoning districts, and single family residential land uses. And I'll show you in a map later on in this presentation. It also identifies properties that are already containing an existing institutional use or a public facility. So institutional is more like church or schools. Public facilities are generally government-owned buildings, and regardless of zoning, if you have that kind of use in a building, you can locate a childcare there. And this applies in urban and rural areas. So this table is actually out of the childcare draft ordinance. And to locate within an existing building, you would have to be the building would have to be located in an institutional, commercial, or mixed-use zoning district. And you could even expand that building up to 10,000 square feet, where the site is served by public utilities and roads. Also, you could build a new building to house the childcare center within a commercial or institutional zoning district and meeting the criteria of up to 10,000 square feet in urban areas served by public utilities and roads. And I have here ESA, which is an environmentally sensitive area, or scenic corridor. If that was the case, it would require a use permit, but that's not applicable in North Fair Oaks. Also, the ordinance would allow for the replacement of a building with a new building for a childcare center with certain criteria. So I worked with our GIS staff to identify the commercial mixed use zoning districts within North Fair Oaks, as well as those areas designated by the county's general plan for institutional use. So they're shown in the commercial and mixed use districts are shown in green, and the institutional designated parcels are shown in yellow. And so we'd be talking about existing buildings in those areas with some amount of addition allowed. Also, this map does not illustrate the existing institutional buildings or existing public facilities, but those properties used for those uses could also be converted to a childcare. So moving on to childcare centers located within a converted single-family residence or conversion of a portion of a multifamily residential building. That would be allowed in a residential, mixed-use, or commercial zoning district if the property is of conforming size. So in most cases in North Fair Oaks, the zoning requires a 5,000 square foot minimum lot size. And if the parcel meets that minimum lot size, they would be able to convert that existing residence to a childcare, meeting these criteria. The most important being the parking. So there's one parking space required for every 6 children enrolled, which ties the number of children to the amount of parking available. So there won't be an incident, hopefully, where you have too many children and too little parking. And then that ratio is from the Institute of Transportation Engineers manual. So it's a very well accepted parking rate. And of course, the zoning, the development standards of the zoning district would still be applicable. So these are, we identified the parcels that are essentially residential and of conforming size. So it's essentially the residential, these are the residential areas of North Fair Oaks right here. Oops, okay. So in terms of the use permit process, there will still be projects that don't meet the criteria, which a use permit would still be required. And that is incidences which make for less compatible situations with childcare centers, such as location of a childcare center within a manufacturing M1 zoned property. Also, say a new building within a residential zoning district. Also, conversion of a house on a substandard parcel, a parcel smaller than the minimum lot size, a brand new building, just childcare within a mixed-use zoning district, and also an addition that's greater than 10,000 to an existing building. So as I discussed, for single family conversion, it's 1 parking space for every 6 children. However, if it's not within a single family conversion, just a regular commercial building, for example, it would be 1 space for every 4 enrolled children, or 3 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. And that is, again, the standard parking rate out of the ITE manual. The ordinance does provide a 50% parking reduction for accessory childcare uses to another main use. So if it's located at the same site as a much larger business where many people are employed, there would be a parking reduction because you would, the workers there would only sort of park once. They wouldn't park at the childcare center and then park again necessarily at their work. They would just park once and then walk the kid over. And there wouldn't be really a double demand for parking. Also, an affiliated use is one that may not be located at the same site as a business, but might be located across the street. And in which case, there might be even a group of businesses that are affiliated with a childcare center for the childcare center to provide those services to children of the workers. Also, if the childcare center is located within a quarter mile of a transit center, there's also a parking reduction there, assuming people get there by transit. There's also an amnesty program for existing unpermitted facilities if the facility has been in existence in the same location and permitted by the state for at least 3 years. And then also it provides incentives. It does reference the state incentive, which is a density bonus for childcare centers associated with commercial development, as well as multifamily housing development. And then there's our new local incentives within the draft ordinance, which is to give a floor area bonus and a parking waiver for the childcare if the childcare center is associated with a employment center development. Also, there's a density and floor area bonus and a parking waiver for the same childcare that's associated with a transit-oriented development. So we're hoping that when developers come into Norfolk Oaks or other areas, commercial areas of the county, that they could think about incorporating a childcare center within that development. So in terms of public engagement, an environmental document, the negative declaration, was released from November to December with a comment period. It is still accessible from the county's website, and you can any member of the public or the Norfolk Oaks Community Council can review it and comment on it. Staff did do a presentation to the California Coastal Commission with regard to regulations within the coastal zone, which are a little bit different than outside the coastal zone, which was just presented to you. I also have made several presentations to the Child Care Partnership Council, one presentation to the Transportation Working Group to get their feedback on the parking aspect of the ordinance, as well as just their overall feedback. There was a presentation last night to the Mid-Coast Community Council. I'm making this presentation to you all tonight to get your feedback. And then upcoming, I hope to take the draft ordinance to the Planning Commission in March, and then on to the Board of Supervisors for adoption after that. And then it would be effective in non-coastal areas, including Norfolk Oaks. So there are actually some text changes in different zoning districts, as I was describing. There's the patchwork of regulations. So we do have to reach into other zoning districts to clean those up, make them consistent with this brand new chapter that regulates childcare facilities. So that is what that's about. As stated in the staff report, staff is asking for a recommendation from the Norfolk Oaks Community Council to the Planning Commission regarding adoption of the Child Care Centers Ordinance, as well as the associated text changes of the different county zoning regulation districts, so that we can implement sort of a streamlined process for child care centers in unincorporated county. And that's it for my presentation, but definitely available if you guys have any questions, or if I can provide any information.
Yes, thank you very much, Camille, for your presentation. If council members have questions, please go ahead and raise your hand. And Linda Lopez has a question. Go ahead, Linda.
Camille, thank you. That was a lot of information. Thank goodness I had downloaded the documents before the meeting, so I was able to go over some of the things. I have a question about the parking.
Okay.
How does the required parking or your proposed parking coincide with the ratio between the worker and the child?
Okay, so if the childcare center is on the same site as, do you mean the workers at the childcare center?
Yes.
Okay, it's just a total parking requirement that covers both parents dropping off as well as workers. There's not a separate requirement or a separate set of spaces for the childcare workers.
Okay, so it's just a standard. So you're not going to individually
Set aside.
I guess what I want to know is it, number one, is it enough parking for the employees? And how does that, and you know the number of employees based on how many kids, correct, are being taken care of?
Right. Well, it depends. I believe the teacher-student ratio is a little bit lower, meaning you need more teachers with the younger the child, and then the older the child, you have a higher teacher-student ratio. But this is just based on the number of children enrolled, and that's. I mean, we can have a sliding scale based on the number of infants versus toddlers, but what we don't want is, say there's changes in enrollment, which cause the parking requirements to change, and then suddenly, the child care center has to come up with another parking space. We want sort of a stable way to calculate the parking and have it be consistent. And so there will be a capacity limit for a childcare center once parking's all established.
I just have another question. Has this group surveyed the parents? Do the parents obviously they must know what's changing, or are they liking the idea of expanding services to some of the employment locations or transit centers?
Based on the deficits,
and I'm going to bring this up, Camille, because there was an issue that came up with the housing proposed behind the Fair Oaks Clinic. Mm-hmm. And I believe Child Care Center is part of the plan.
Yes.
Yet from what I understand, the tenants are not going to have priority over that service. It will be open to everybody. Right. So that sticks in my mind that, wait a minute, if we're putting a childcare center into a housing compound or complex as part of the total plan, that's ideal for the tenants. Correct?
Yeah, I think it might be how they're funding, how the child care center is funded. So if it's public funds, okay. I don't think there may not be an ability to prioritize, but okay. If it's a private child care center and there's a close affiliation, I'd imagine that there is some priority. I know with the county, there's actually a discount for county employees. So in that sense, there's an incentive for county workers too.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Camille. Thanks.
And I had one question, Camille. is this ordinance applicable only to unincorporated areas, or do cities within San Mateo County are also adopting these?
Actually, Redwood City just adopted theirs, I want to say a month or so ago. And our ordinances are pretty similar in the fact that the types of streamlined projects are the childcare centers within existing buildings, because that's sort of the low-hanging fruit. That's the easiest way to establish a childcare center without disruption to, neighborhood or land uses too much. So there's Sarah Kinahan and Kristen Anderson are on this call, and they may have a better understanding of what other cities within the county are coming on board with childcare ordinances. But there is a little bit of a push for that based on the new state laws to make childcare more accessible, as well as just the deficits and families that need more childcare.
Right. And could you share I know you mentioned that the period for public comment had closed, but people
Yes.
can still send comments. If you could share the website on the chat, that would be great for everybody to have access.
Sure.
I guess one concern would be that, as Linda was saying, and this comes up every time, the issue of parking, that when there is a place, whether that's business or public or private, that attracts people or customers, there is always the potential for creating bottlenecks because of the lack of parking.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes what happens is that people end up just parking, in driveways or parking in double lanes, and creating a little bit of chaos, in the middle of the street. I've certainly seen it, in a couple of places here in North Fair Oaks, as it is. So I guess that would be one of the major concerns that I would have. Of course, I don't have children, but I still do have a concern for vehicular traffic and for parking issues that may exist.
Right. I mean, I did use a national parking rate, well-accepted parking rate, as the basis of our parking regulations for childcare centers. Also, funneling or directing childcare centers to locating commercial or institutional areas. A lot of those properties are already developed with a lot of parking. So that's kind of why they were steered in that direction. And then also for the conversion of single family dwellings, the enrollment is directly tied to the amount of on-site parking. So if you think about a specific house, usually there's 2 parking spaces within a garage and 2 parking spaces directly in the driveway. So that's about 4 spaces. So they can serve a maximum of 24 kids. And also from my experience, I do have a son who's 12 years old. When parents are doing drop off, it's usually pretty quick, and parents' times for drop offs typically vary. Not everyone comes like right at 8 o'clock or right at 9 o'clock. And they usually stop for a very short amount of time. They're walking their kid in and dropping lunch off and leaving. So there's some staggering of those stops, if that helps.
Thank you. And Blair has a question also. Go ahead, Blair.
Just a comment. I think childcare is like one of the most accessible small businesses that people can start and operate. When I was a kid, my mom stayed home with my brother and me, and then took care of some neighbors' kids. And it was just a way to make ends meet. I really appreciate the amnesty program. I think there's a lot of people just trying to make things work in this economic climate. And whatever we can do to promote existing, maybe unlicensed centers getting recognized that it's okay, you're not going to get punished, we'll work with you. I think they did something with ADUs where there's like a black box. You can come in and we're not going to judge you. We're not going to keep records. We'll just tell you if your existing situation would meet the requirements for a permit. And if not, they're not going to like open an investigation on you. Something like that would be cool because it's part of the tapestry of the community. And I think it's like a great small business. So I just want to encourage and promote it as much as possible. And a follow-up question, are you asking us to do like a motion towards the Board of Supervisors that we support this? Because I would vote for that if that's what you're looking for.
That would be great, yes. Specifically, the next step is the Planning Commission recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. So this would be a recommendation to the Planning Commission for its recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. Right. But this will get to the board and they will see your recommendation and I think appreciate it.
Thank you. Linda, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, this is not a council action agenda item.
You're correct. I didn't see an action
It was for
listed on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, that through the chair, yeah, that was some miscommunication on our part. And so I did speak to Camille today and she confirmed that, yes, she would actually like it for it to be an action item.
Oh, well, okay. We should know that. Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to clarify that before the public comment.
I've taken a look at the agenda and I don't have any concerns if there is a motion in response to the presentation.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Do any other council members have questions or can we move on to public comment?
I would like to comment.
Go ahead, Beatrice.
This is in conjunction with Blair's statement. I'd like to see more information of those existing maybe family situations that do have some quote unquote some type of childcare and the support and education to maybe bringing those situations more up to par to make them more conforming. I would like to kind of see that in this more conversation, I guess.
Okay, well, I think actually it's important that I clarify that because of the state law, SB 234 that passed about a year or a little bit more than a year ago, those large family care homes that might have required a ministerial permit from the county are now permitted by right. So they don't require any permits from the county planning department. As far as and really, so the only amnesty sites that we're talking about here are unpermitted childcare centers, of which really I don't believe there are any in North Fair Oaks. To set up a whole center without permits is I would say a little probably.
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
To do. Yeah.
So where in this whole conversation of childcare do these conversations come in? I guess that's my question. If this is only for a certain, part of it, what about the whole other 70% of families that do have some type of childcare and need support to continue it or make it better or more support?
Oh, I see. Like I said, there's two childcare professionals that help me a lot on this ordinance, and they can speak to other services that are offered in terms of supporting existing childcare centers, like staying open during COVID. There might be a drop in enrollment that kind of is a hardship for carrying on the business. So they can speak to that. I don't know how you guys want, how they would speak as they're just members of the public. I don't know, Sandra, would you want them to answer those questions in terms of they can be upgraded now to a host to answer those questions or answer them during the public comment period?
Yes, Camille. So normally Chair Rodriguez would open it for public comment once the council members have had an opportunity to ask their questions.
Yeah, so that would be next. If no council members have any further comments, concerns, or questions in this regard. And it sounds like no. So Sandy, if we have any public comment.
Sure. So for all those attending the meeting, if you would like to use the raise hand feature to make a public comment, now would be the time to do so. So please go ahead and raise your hands if you have any questions. I see Sarah. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. And then if you could just go ahead and wait to speak until you see the stopwatch on your screen. And then you can go ahead and speak. Actually, Camille, may I ask you to stop sharing your screen for a minute?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, council members and all others who are on the call. I did submit a written comment. Basically, I'll introduce myself first. I'm Sarah Kinahan. I'm the coordinator for the Child Care Partnership Council. We're an advisory body to the County Office of Education and County Superintendent on matters related to child care. And so you have my written comment. In there, I noted that in the zip codes of 94025, 94027, and 94063, there's a total supply gap of over 1,400 spaces for children ages 0 to 4. And then time's ticking down. I put in the chat our local resource and referral agency, the San Mateo 4Cs. So they would support home-based providers that are looking to get licensed and grow their business. And they also provide referrals for parents to help them find childcare, as well as subsidies for low-income families. And lastly, there was a question about where do parents want care? And we mostly find parents want it either near their home or near their work. And I think this ordinance goes a long way to helping those programs open in the areas where they are most needed. Thank you.
Thank you. And I saw one other hand. I believe it was Randy. Just a second, Randy. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Hi, Randy Torrijos from Supervisor Dave Pine's office. I just wanted to comment on one of the commissioner's concerns about additional assistance to childcare. I just wanted to note that the Board of Supervisors did provide some federal CARES funding to childcare as COVID relief. The county provided about $4 million from CARES funding. And off of that $4 million, our nonprofit partners raised around $1 million, maybe a little bit more. And they are opening a fund that they just passed for learning hubs, which is for out of school-age children that normally would be in school. So just wanted the commission to be aware of that. Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any more raised hands, so I will turn it over to Victor. Victor, are there any comments on the phone line?
Thanks, Sandy. I don't see any at the moment.
Okay, thank you for confirming. Back to you, Chair Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you very much. I could entertain a motion from any of the council members for this item.
Oh, okay.
Unless you need more time before making the motion, or a little bit more time to discuss? I know that it was a little bit unexpected since we didn't see it on the agenda. So if you feel like you need to discuss any further or have additional questions, by all means, we can try that.
I'll put a motion out, Everardo, that we approve the child care facilities ordinance, recommend that the Planning Commission and indeed the Board of Supervisors do so as well.
Mhm. I'll second.
Okay, so
Second
the
motion, or
we have 2 seconds.
we have 2 seconds.
Right.
Okay. That's fine, Juan Carlos. That's fine. We can go with 1 second.
All right. So Vice President Juan Carlos Prado seconds. So it looks like, let's take this for a vote. If you can count the vote, Sandy, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Chair Everardo Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Juan Carlos Prado,
Yes.
Councilmember Beatriz Cerrillo,
Yes.
Councilmember Linda Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Blair Whitney,
Yes.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz, Councilmember Joni Gillespie, and Councilmember Brooks Esser.
Yes.
So it looks like the motion carries to support this.
Thank you so much, North Fair Oaks.
Mhm.
Thank you very much, Camille. Good luck.
Thank you for having me.
And moving on to the next item, we'll have another presentation. This time is a presentation on the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. Joshua Hug will provide this presentation from the Governmental Affairs. He's a Governmental Affairs Specialist. Sorry. Welcome, Joshua.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the council and the public. My name is Josh Hug, and I am, as was said, the Governmental Affairs Specialist for the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. The purpose of this presentation is to give you a little more familiarity with the district and talk a little bit about some of the work that's going on as we speak. So I'm going to, if you don't mind, share my screen. Let's see here. Screen 2. And okay. So, so a little bit of background about the district. Since 1972, when our district was created, our mission has been to acquire a regional green space, green belt of open space in perpetuity, protect, restore it, and restore the natural environment and provide opportunities for ecologically sensitive public enjoyment and education. In 2004, the district annexed the San Mateo coast side, and that mission was expanded to include the protection of agricultural land on the coast and the preservation of rural character. So this is a picture of one of our preserves down in Cupertino, our Rancho San Antonio Open Space Preserve. Every other slide I have just pictures of some of the scenes you'll see if you come out to our preserves. So as I said, we were created in 1972 by a grassroots voter initiative, Measure R at that time. And within the district boundaries, we have about 770,000 constituents. We are a special district, a governmental organization with 7 elected directors, 7 wards across the district, 5 in Santa Clara County and 2 in San Mateo County. We are funded primarily through property tax. And within our boundaries, which covers about 550 square miles, we have 26 preserves that span 3 counties. primarily Santa Clara and San Mateo, but we do have a tiny bit of our southern end of our district that extends into Santa Cruz County. Over the last 50 years that we've been here, next year is our 50th anniversary, we have protected approximately 65,000 acres of open space land and have enabled 240 miles of trails for public enjoyment. The preserves are free. There is no charge for parking or any access. We are open 365 days a year. Our main office is in Los Altos, and we have field offices scattered across the district, mostly on Skyline, and we have another one being established in the southern end of our district in Campbell. The district is comprised of about 180 employees and 600 volunteers. Some of you may recall on the 2014 primary ballot, we put before the voters an initiative to pass a $300 million general obligation bond to be used to support public priorities. We went through an 18-month public listening and prioritization process in the years running up to the 2014 election. And based on that, we put this bond forward, and it passed with the required 2/3 majority. What you'll see here is this is the picture of our 7 board members. Just from left to right, we have Karen Holman, Yoriko Kishimoto, we have Pete Siemens, Jed Sear, Larry Hassett, who I believe covers North Fair Oaks, Kurt Riffle, who's our board president this year, and Zoe Kirstein Tucker, who covers the northern portion of the coast side. Okay. Our Montebello Preserve, this was our first acquisition for the district back in the early 70s. Just to give you an idea of what the district looks like, we annexed this portion of San Mateo in the mid-2000s. We extended into San Mateo County in the mid-70s, and then we originated in Santa Clara County, the western side and northern portion of Santa Clara County in 1972. What you'll see down here at the southern end is what we call sphere of influence, our area that extends a little bit outside the district and then into Santa Cruz County. But what you'll also see here is the 26 preserves that we offer. As we acquire land, we look for opportunities to open it to the public. This is our Long Ridge Preserve that runs along Skyline and down into Santa Cruz County. Among the activities that are available for the public to enjoy on our lands, again, the 240 miles of open space hiking trails, 16 of our preserves are available for mountain bikers. We recognize that sharing the trail can be a challenging activity, even in the best of times, let alone in the times of COVID. 11 of our preserves are dog friendly, with one of them allowing off-leash access. We do have a backpack camp at our Montebello Preserve on Black Mountain. We have hosts of docent-led hikes, a geocaching challenge. We have these small little geocaches spread amongst our preserves with the GIS coordinates identified, and with your phone or a GIS tracker, you can use that as a basis to to get out into our lands and enjoy the lands and do something fun. Just effectively a scavenger hunt. We have volunteer opportunities and a huge number of volunteer activities. They serve an important component of our ability to maintain and restore the land that we protect. And then last but not least, for those that have horses, we have equestrian trails available as well. This is one of our most recent preserve openings was Mount Umunum in 2017. If folks are in the South Bay and you look up on the ridgeline and you see this huge radar tower, or a cube, actually now it's a cube, that was the remnants of an Air Force base that protected the West Coast back in the 50s. It was decommissioned in the 80s and then converted to open space within the last 5 to 10 years. It also has a lot of cultural significance to the Amamutsan band of the Ohlone Indians. In addition to just your own enjoyment, there's also guided activities. Again, on our website, we encourage folks to take a look at the calendar that we have posted there to see those opportunities that are available. And we cater to all ages and skill levels. This is one of our more popular preserves, Russian Ridge. I encourage folks, if you happen to be up on Skyline at the intersection of Skyline Boulevard and Alpine Road, that's the gateway to Russian Ridge. And in the spring, the wildflowers are spectacular. Some of the volunteer opportunities that we have available. Trail patrol that has to do with safety and the maintenance of the trails that we have. We have a nature center near Russian Ridge, again at the intersection of Alpine Road and Skyline. And then we have the docent and education opportunities. This is our Piketty Open Space Preserve. It has a lot of history, amongst which is a winery that we lease out. The building on the far right here is the actual winery with tasting rooms. It's a great place to just hang out and have lunch, taste the wine, and get out on trails. I spoke a little bit about the nature center that we have. We have the one on Skyline, which is staffed by volunteers. And then we have Deer Hollow Farm, which is actively maintained through a partnership with the district and the city of Mountain View. And there are children's programs there, as well as an active farm. Just a little bit about what's new with the district. I wanted to just point out two things. The first one is probably the closest opportunity to North Fair Oaks, and that's the opening of our Ravenswood Bay Trail segment. It's 0.6 miles, but it's a 0.6 mile segment, but it helps to enable almost 80 miles of Bay Trail. So it's used for both public enjoyment and for commuting. So if you were to get out onto the land, you'd have these spectacular views of the marshes and just a great place to get out and enjoy the quiet of the bay. This is a platform that was installed on the boardwalk that crosses the marsh and has interpretive signage in both English and Spanish. Just to give you a little more context, on the right side here is that segment that we completed over the summer of 2020. We had our grand opening in July, but we see this as the beginning of a larger endeavor, which is the Bay to the Sea Trail. Mm-hmm. And working with numerous partners, including POST, the Peninsula Open Space Trust, mm-hmm. and the county, and other partners, we are looking to complete this trail that spans the entire peninsula, up to the ridgeline, across the bay side, up to the ridgeline, and then down to the coast side. So this is a multi-decade endeavor, but that segment of the Bay Trail was an important portion to make it a reality. We're hoping that if the Dumbarton Corridor ever becomes a thing, that we'll carve out a little bit of room there for bikes and pedestrians that would help to enable that segment. This is a I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our wildfire resiliency program. As part of our mission of protecting the land, we also maintain it for public safety. And with that, our land and facilities crews help to maintain over 200 miles of roads, of access roads that allows agencies like CAL FIRE to effectively fight fires that occur on our wildlands. We also maintain 114 miles of trails. We also provide emergency access for fire suppression and evacuation routes for the community, dotting both the ridgeline and the coast side are these small communities and homeowners that are in what they call the wildland urban interface. They are in amongst the trees or approximate such that in the event of a fire, the CZU fires was just a horrible illustration of the necessity for this kind of infrastructure and this maintenance. In addition to maintaining those roads, we do shaded fuel breaks, which means you're clearing out the understory of the trees, trying to prevent ladder fuels from reaching the crowns of the trees and spreading that way, killing the trees in the process. Mowed lines, what they call disc lines, which is almost like tilling the soil. This here is a great example. This is I believe it's a broadcast tower up on Skyline, and it was struck by lightning, and you can see the blackened soil around it. Had that been surrounded by vegetation, that more than likely would have caught fire. But with treatments like these, you can prevent that spread, or at a minimum, slow it down so fire crews can get there before it accelerates. In addition to our crews work, we also have 8,000 acres of grassland that we maintain, and one of the ways we do that is through an active grazing program. We have farmers that lease our lands, and in addition to the grazing that they do for their business interests, we also utilize those cows that are grazing to minimize the spread of invasive species, which preserves biodiversity and reduces fuel loads in the process. This year, we are hoping to complete our fire resiliency plan, which will increase the ability of the district to treat the vegetation or reduce the fuels on our lands by 600%. So right now we're treating about 365 acres a year. We're looking to boost that to over 2,600 acres. So over 10 years, we'd be able to treat 26,000 acres across our holdings. And this is for both public safety, and we'll also say we have a dual mission. We are, public safety is a primary interest, but we also have a conservation mission. California is a fire-adapted state. So a lot of the species that exist on the peninsula also rely on fire for their biological processes. So we do our work with that in mind as well. Right now, we are in the middle of an EIR process. An environmental impact report was released for public comment on January 15th for a 45-day comment period. And after that, we hope to have it certified by this spring. So those are just a couple that's who we are and a couple of things that we're working on at the moment. And I'm happy to entertain questions, but really the bottom line is that we are an asset for you and the community. These are your open space lands. Throughout COVID, we have seen incredible increases in the number of people using our lands. We are viewed as an essential service. And if people are stuck at home, this is a place where you can go and recreate safely, decompress, to enjoy nature, and hopefully come back after COVID is done as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. Great presentation. Love the pictures. I myself must say that when I was in college, I once took an elective class at a Foothill College that was just called hiking around the Bay Area. And I had the pleasure of visiting, many of these sites, wonderful places like, the Skyline Ridge. I remember, and I've gone back there several times. The Montebello Open Space, the Russian Ridge. So, that class actually was one of the most pleasurable experiences I had in college for obvious reasons. And it was unexpected. I wasn't expecting to enjoy that class so much, but I ended up truly loving it. But it was, I recognize it, because of the places where we went and visited, and did the hiking. I think we are very fortunate to live around this area that is so precious and so naturally beautiful. So thank you for bringing this to our attention. And I certainly encourage other, the other council members and the public at large to visit many of these places, visit the MidPen website and learn, where these places are. They are actually, a very short drive away. So it is an excellent thing. I'll open up to council members if they have any questions for Josh. Juan Carlos, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned the cattle grazing. Is that year round, or is that just temporary or seasonal?
No, those are year round. We have multi-year leases that get renewed periodically, but they're out there all year, summer, fall, winter. They're out there.
Okay, and then regarding the Ravenswood property, what kind of facilities do you have? Do you have a restroom? Is it handicapped, ramp friendly? Can you provide us some information on the infrastructure, particularly of Ravenswood? Thank you.
Let me get back up to so one thing you'll see here is that our preserve is right next to a park. Actually, this little peninsula here at the end of Bay Road is a park that was established probably, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or less now, called Cooley Landing. It was an old dump site that was rehabilitated, and the city of East Palo Alto qualified for a Prop 84 grant to install a nature center here. And included with this, if you can read the symbols here, is a bathroom. But yes, the access here is it is an ADA accessible trail. Part of the Bay Trail is primarily paved, so it's a level surface for both bicyclists and pedestrians. Ours is a little more gravelly, but the segment that we just enabled here is a boardwalk and is ADA accessible. So down here you have your facilities, and it's a pretty level surface.
And this trail is open during daylight, or is it open, accessible 24 hours a day?
We, for our preserves, they are open a half hour before sunrise to a half hour after sunset. And I believe for some of the newer preserves and projects, we've installed automatic gates that control that, and otherwise our rangers would come down. We try to discourage, there are night opportunities, but those are done through guided docent hikes, moonlight hikes, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Josh, for large groups, are there docent-led tours that people can book?
Yes. Yeah, you can take a look at it. I'll just flip over here to our website. Oops, let's see if I'm doing that right here. So this is our website, but down here you'll see a calendar of events. Might be a little more sparse at this time simply because of COVID.
Right.
But what you would typically see is this populated with all kinds of activities and again, COVID is dominating things, but you would be able to look at all these different, qualifiers, easy hikes, moderate hikes, and so forth. And those are, open to groups. If you'd want to host your own group, you can get a permit. We do have a permitting system for large groups if you want to go out on your own with, family and friends. And there's also portions of our district that are, because of the nature of what's there, whether it's residential or sensitive habitats, there are some areas that you need to apply for a permit to access, but they are accessible. But,
Great. Yeah, no, I was wondering because I think maybe a couple of years ago there was an incentive through county parks that they got funding, and they had a shuttle that was coming to North Fair Oaks. Since there's a lot of people who don't have enough means for transportation or own a vehicle, so that shuttle would take North Fair Oaks residents on weekends to nearby parks in San Mateo. And so that was a great program. I know that many people took advantage of that. So that's why I was wondering if that is still possible. Of course, post the pandemic, once it's safe.
Yeah, you're right. That was county parks through a transit district grant. We are looking at, particularly for our more popular preserves, looking at alternatives to driving. And that is one of the options that we're evaluating is the use of shuttles. But yeah, transportation can be a problem. We do have a grant program for schools. I think they're Title I schools. If they need to pay for transportation to take the kids out on a day trip, we can help pay for that.
Awesome. Thank you. And I believe Brooks has a question. Go ahead, Brooks.
Yeah, quick question, Josh. I'm unclear on the difference between the charter of the Mid-Peninsula Region Open Space District and Post. Can you clear that up for me?
Probably the most basic one is the fact that we're a governmental entity. Our direct board of directors is elected, and Post is a private foundation.
Got it. We
actually, along with some other entities, helped to create Post back in the 70s. We work very closely with them. One of the things about being a governmental entity is our ability to affect land purchases is a little more constrained than a private entity like Post. So in some cases where the owner doesn't want to have its information made public for whatever reason, it's up to them. They would work through an intermediary like Post, where they would purchase the land and then we would buy it from Post.
Oh, okay.
They are an amazing partner, and they work with us and with state parks, with the Santa Clara Valley Open Space Authority, any number of entities like us.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any others hand raised from council members. So I'll ask if there's any public comment.
Okay, great. So anybody on the Zoom call wishing to make a public comment on this agenda item, please go ahead and use the raise hand feature. And I'll go ahead and call your name. Okay, I don't see any raised hands on the Zoom call. Victor, are there any comments on the phone line?
Thank you, Sandra. I don't see any at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you again, Josh. Good luck, and we'll be visiting soon.
Please do. Thank you.
All right, and moving on to item number 5. This will be council action seeking a recommendation to the zoning hearing officer for the consideration of a minor subdivision pursuant to section 7002 of the county subdivision regulation to subdivide an 11,780 square feet parcel into 4 townhouse units and 1 common interest parcel at 20 Dexter Avenue. That's the address, 20 Dexter Avenue in unincorporated North Fair Oaks in San Mateo County. The project includes the removal of 1 30-inch diameter redwood tree. And giving us this presentation is going to be Kanoa Kelly, planner for the Planning and Building Department. Kanoa?
All right, thank you, Council. Let me just pull up my slides here and share them with you.
Of course, take your time.
Okay, so as you mentioned, this is you will be providing a recommendation to the ZHO for the consideration of this minor subdivision. The 11,780 square foot parcel will be divided into 4 townhouse units, 1 common interest parcel, and this is located at 20 Dexter Avenue. The project also includes the removal of 1 30-inch in diameter redwood tree. And there's also a redwood tree that was removed previously. It was an 18 to 25-inch redwood. So this is an after-the-fact redwood tree removal that will also be part of this project that was removed in April of 2019. So here is the location, 20 Dexter Avenue, North Fair Oaks. Between El Camino and Waverly Avenue, just off El Camino there. And here is the zoning for the area. It's zoned R3S5, so it's directly adjacent to the NMU ECR zone, and it's kind of acts as a buffer between the more commercial spaces and the residential in the back. So they're not exposed to all the traffic and noise and other things there. Here is a photo from that adjacent commercial property, just to show you there's the view of the existing, it's a triplex there. And here's a view of the entrance. So you can see it's a kind of a gravel and mud entrance. Lots of nice trees on site, beautiful redwoods. And here's the subdivision. So you can see there's the common interest area. It will be a shared access for all of the units. Each one of the units here, you can see has their own garage. So they have their own parking, 2-car garage on the bottom level. And also there's 2 additional guest parking spaces. So let me show you here. These are the elevations, so you can see a little bit better. These are the north and the south elevations. The south elevations will be facing the commercial area, that alleyway. And this is the north elevations that you would drive in. You see this front there. You can see the garages, and it is a 3-story complex, so townhouse complex. And then these are this is kind of the color combination that they went with. It's subdued earth tones. The main body here will be in this light gray. They'll also have white garage doors. And then they also, to break up the stucco, they've added some hardy board to have those horizontal elements. Hardy board will be painted in this storm cloud, so like a darker gray. And then some of the accents will be in this rockweed kind of brownish color. This is just to show you the location of the tree removal. The one that was removed previously is up at the top there. Just from going off accounts, it was kind of in the middle of the kind of fenced area up there. And then this tree number 28 here, that will be removed for development. And that's the only one that they're proposing to remove of the 38 trees on site. So here's just a slide that shows that the project is in compliance with all of the R3 S5 development standards. It meets all the setback requirements, the minimum site areas, height requirements, and then the actual subdivision complies with county subdivision regulations. And the project is categorically exempt pursuant to Class 15 of the CEQA guidelines for minor land divisions. So the recommendation is that the North Fair Oaks Community Council provide a recommendation to the zoning hearing officer on the proposed minor subdivision. So that's a little bit of background, and that concludes my presentation. I'll open up to any comments or questions.
Thank you, Kanoa. Council members, if you have questions, please go ahead and ask them. I'll ask Kanoa if you can go back to the, I think it was the superior view, maybe one before that.
This one.
Yeah. So are we to assume that El Camino Real is over by the blue stripe?
Yes, that's the side that of El Camino.
Okay.
So there's more of a buffer between the driveway and the residential in the back, and then there's it's all kind of pushed towards that alleyway.
And how many bedrooms are there on each of these units, or do they vary?
So they vary, yeah. They're mostly three bedrooms. Let me see here. So yeah, they all have 3 bedrooms. They vary in size, but they're all 3-bedroom units.
And do they comply with parking requirements?
They do. They each of the units has a 2-car covered parking, and then they're not required, but they also have some on-site parking for guests.
Okay, so would you say that that they're not going to be impacting the residential side with additional cars, etc.?
No, so they exceed the requirements for parking. So it's most likely they'll park on site, and they also have additional guest parking for visitors as well.
Okay. Do other council members have questions? I see Linda Lopez. Go ahead.
Okay. So I usually ask the planner if what kind of feedback they've gotten from the neighborhood. If Kanoa, you can respond to what came out of the meeting that we had on January 20th, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so based on some feedback that we received at the ZHO hearing that was continued, we had a ZHO hearing on December 17th, and because of input from the community council, you guys wanted to have this on your agenda. So we put that off, and it gave us a little time to schedule a community meeting, which we did on, as you mentioned, on January 12th. And to kind of distill all of the comments down to a few points from that meeting, I believe there was mostly objections. And those objections were about the height, so 3 stories, and the overall aesthetic. I guess you could say the way that it looks. They felt it looks like an apartment complex or something like that. It didn't really fit into their community. And those were the main comments that came out of that meeting.
Okay, Ever, if I may add some information, please.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So first of all, let me just very briefly give you a background on the neighborhood. It's identified as Selby Park. And the neighborhood consists of approximately 100 homes that were built between anywhere, well, my home is built in 1937, but anywhere between 1937 and 1960 as single family and multifamily homes. Out of the 100 homes in this particular neighborhood, there's 4 or 5 structures that have 2 stories. There are no other structures in this neighborhood that have more than 1 or 2 stories. Most of the concerns that came out of the January 20th neighborhood meeting with the planner and developer are based on 2 things. Yes, the design. Well, let me start off by saying, I'm sorry. This is not what they call not in my backyard type of protest. We want to be able to work together on the height and structure and protection of maintaining the mature redwood trees. I had 10 comments sent to me, and the gist of the comment is, number 1 is about downsizing the project to 2 stories. The excessive height is more suitable to housing on El Camino. How can we integrate design with the Selby Park neighborhood? How can the proposal be modified to benefit both the developer and the neighborhood homeowners and renters? Why not design 2 or 3 individual units? But basically, what can be done to complement the neighborhood? And the second area of concern is the trees. The neighborhood feels that the heritage trees are at risk, even though in proposal they're talking about that one, I think it was, 30-inch diameter tree.
Yes.
There were trees already taken out prior to the neighborhood even knowing anything about what was going on. But there's a lot of opposition to preserving the trees. The proposed driveway it's being proposed to pave. That will require that tree roots be cut in order to excavate to create a driveway. So how many more trees are going to be at risk? There's also, I mean, we just heard from Joshua Hugg about Mid-Peninsula. There's also concern about preserving the ecosystem in this area. So there's a lot of concerns, not only about the structure, it's a 3-story box that I understand the driveway will be gated. People will, it's going to be a gated housing, but it's also about how do we preserve our trees. And I'll leave it at that and open it if other council members have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Blair, go ahead.
I wasn't aware this parcel was there. It's right behind the wine merchants and that Shelby restaurant. There's an alley and there's a little lot. So the neighbor, I believe on the west side, is a parking lot that either the wine merchant or the restaurant or both use. It's literally like a block from El Camino. I'm concerned about plopping down density in the middle of a neighborhood, but I'm also cognizant of the desperate need for housing and the kind of housing that people want, not just like half-ass. I look at the Google satellite image, and there's a lot of ADUs in people's backyards. People are doing infill development. This is a pretty big parcel, and it looks like a quality housing thing. They're probably going to be priced way out of my price range, but it's not about, approving or disproving stuff just for myself. It's about for the community at large. It's really close to El Camino. It's close to Fifth Avenue. There's that senior housing at Fifth and Waverly that's, I think it's 3 stories, or it might be only 2. But I think they're doing the Sunrise Senior Center or memory care thing. There's a bunch of little developments in here, and all up and down El Camino, you're seeing 3 to 5 stories. I'm not against something just because it's 3 stories, but I do have questions. Seems like it's offset though. There's alleys. It's not like you're going to be looking in anyone's bedroom or bathroom window. That's what usually comes up when someone puts like a monster ADU in their backyard in Redwood City, and it's looking over the fence into someone's private space. Sorry, I'm just generally rambling, but I'm generally in favor of housing. That's it.
Thank you, Blair. And Kanoa, is the zoning being changed for this purpose, or is the project in compliance with within the boundaries of the zoning?
The zoning is not changing. They will not apply for a zoning change. It complies with the existing zoning.
Okay, thank you. And I see Juan Carlos has his hand raised. Go ahead, Juan Carlos.
Yeah, my question is there any mitigation going on with the developer as far as the vegetation that will be directly affected? I know there's a mention of the redwood tree, but then Linda brings up some very interesting concerns, given the magnitude of this development and given the magnitude of the excavating that will be happening. There's certainly a lot of trees around the perimeter, and those roots go on, for many, many, many feet. And so I guess I just am concerned about any of the mitigation that will happen in order to for that construction that you can speak of.
Yes. So I included a the arborist report. So they hired an arborist to evaluate the project and its impacts. And we ran they have some mitigation measures that they've recommended. So one of the things is they only recommend a 6 inches excavation. So there's a maximum depth that they recommend. They're going to put a geotextile down to improve filtration, reduce the base thickness, and reduce compaction of any surrounding soil. So that's their recommendation to kind of mitigate any potential impact to those trees, and that's what they're going to go with for the project is the arborist recommendations.
Oh, okay. I'm a California licensed landscape contractor, and so I was just particularly concerned about the mitigation, particularly of the existing vegetation, both what's proposed to be eliminated and what could be affected as a secondary effect during construction.
Right. Yeah. So it's just that one tree that is proposed for removal. Is one redwood tree on the south side and facing that alley. It's just because it's too close to the buildings and it's in poor condition. And everything else they'll do their best to preserve in coordination with an arborist, a certified arborist.
Thank you.
Kanoa, in terms of the height, are they reaching the maximum height allowed for the zoning, or are they surpassing?
So I have it here. So you can see the height's 36 feet is the max height. They're at 34 feet 3 inches, so they're below the max height.
All right. Are you familiar with the Sunrise Senior Center nearby?
Yes.
Being built. How many stories is that? You remember?
I believe that it was initially 3, but they based on some community input, all I know is the original height was 3 stories. But they may have changed it since then.
I see that Linda has raised her hand again. Perhaps she can tell us about it. Maybe she remembers. Go ahead, Linda.
Oh no, I'm speaking to the trees, about the trees.
Yeah, but do you remember what the height of the Sunrise Senior Center is? How many stories that is?
It's three stories facing El Camino, and then we were able to negotiate with the other developer that once those starts going into the neighborhood, the building drops down to 2 stories. So if you're looking at that building, Sunrise Senior Housing, you'll see the 3 stories if you're facing El Camino. And then if you go down East Selby Lane, you'll see how it drops from 3 to 2.
Right.
And they preserved all of those heritage trees around the perimeter. So they worked around it.
Yeah, and did you have a comment or question about the trees?
About the tree protection plan. The tree protection plan that's part of the arborist document puts a lot on the arborist to be there at time of inspection to recommend how the trees are monitored. It clearly says, though, trenching and excavation shall strive to stay out of the tree zones. So as an old union labor organizer, anytime when I see the word shall strive, that is not a definite will do. That means shall strive. So it's a could happen or it may not happen. It's not so much about what is there right now. It's about the damage that is going to be done later. Okay, I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyway.
Okay, and I believe that the arborist is in attendance. Is it Mr. and Mrs. Ryan?
Yeah. Hello?
Lai?
Yeah. Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. So yeah, I'm the applicant on the project. I just want to thank everyone for coming. You know, I thank Kanoa for that presentation. I just want to say that we do have the entire design team here for this meeting. We do have the arborist David. He's in the call. The architect Eric and the civil engineer Tim. Just for a few points in regards to the excavation influencing the roots. I actually believe there was a little bit of misinformation. I don't believe we will be like damaging the roots. We will be following what was in the arborist report and in the geotechnical report. The civil engineer Tim, who's in the call, could speak to that. And then obviously David could speak to the protection of the roots as well, if we could allow him to speak.
Yeah, I think for the purposes of the of understanding better, I think it would be great to hear from the arborist. And of course,
David? Yes, through the chair. David, I have already unmuted you, so you can go ahead.
There we go. Hello, everyone. Okay. Yeah, so I've been working back and forth with the civil engineer on this project. And when I said shall strive, I guess I'm saying that because, I mean, the root zone of all these trees takes up the whole entire front of the property. So, I mean, shall strive to be as far away as possible from the trees. Yeah, we're doing the geogrid driveway with only 6 inches of excavation. That's like, I mean, compared to normal driveways, 18, 24 inches, you're going to be saving a ton of roots. And then the geogrid, it's going to let the roots continue to thrive underneath the driveway, as it won't have to be compacted like a standard driveway would be. It would be 85% compaction. And then there's utility lines all done by hand, tunneling utility lines underneath tree roots. We have a lot of, I was going to try and share some pictures here of other jobs, but it's not letting me share any pictures for some reason. But yeah, I mean, and redwood trees have the best tolerance to construction impacts, as seen in a lot of publications. Yeah, I don't know, any other questions? I'm be willing to take some questions.
Thank you. Thank you, David. I think.
Oh, and I guess if you flipped it around too, the house would be closer to the trees, which would be, you know, a 3-foot cut for a foundation. And I'd rather have a driveway over there on top of the root zone where, you know, where we know that all the roots aren't going to be cut and all that kind of stuff. In Palo Alto, they use GeoGrid all the time. In their tree technical manual, they have a whole thing about GeoGrid, and we kind of follow that. Their recommendations for building driveways over root zones.
Okay.
Thank you, David. I think that in the interest of time, we'll move on to public comment, because I know that we received several comments. So Sandy, please go ahead.
Yes, if you are on the Zoom call and would like to make a public comment, please go ahead and raise your hand, and then I will go ahead and unmute you. The first person with their hand raised is Mr. Kent Mansky. Kent, I'll go ahead and unmute you. Please, wait to speak until I go ahead and start the clock. Okay, Kent?
Before you begin the timer, I would please like to bring up the figure of the property showing where the trees are located. The redwood trees. And then my question to the council, after I give my presentation of 2 minutes, do I have permission to read the public comments from Ann Baldwin, who at the last minute was unable to attend?
Tim, is that something that's feasible, or what is the proper course in this case?
If there are written comments, they can be submitted to the council for them to read, but typically we don't allow individuals to read comments during the public comment period.
Thank you, Tim. Yeah, Ken, so if you can send that to us, either to myself or to Sandy, we'll make sure to distribute it to all the other council members.
Can I rephrase my question then to the council? Because there are two very important issues here, the redwood trees and the building. May I have 2 minutes for each?
I'm sorry, but Tim, is that a possibility?
We generally do this per item on the agenda. The speaker limitation is per item.
Right, that's what I thought. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ken, but that's not going to be possible. There's only 2 minutes per person.
Okay, there was just a lot of misinformation to talk about, but if you would begin the timer, I will begin.
Yeah, Kent, the timer has begun. And so we did receive your written comment, and that was also provided to all council members before the meeting, just so you know.
Okay, so my time begins now?
Well, your time had already begun, but yes.
Thank you. Regarding the redwood trees, at the first zoning meeting, it was clearly communicated by the arborist and the planner that tree roots would be cut. It was also communicated that there would be property damage within 20 years. Property damage as a result of the cement slab rising as a result of roots. This would immediately cause the new property owners, 4 new property owners, to have property damage within 20 years. And of course, they would request that the county cut down trees because trees are causing damage. This is kind of absurd. One architectural rendering it is not showing here is the little permeable soil that exists when 75% is made of cement and a structure. These trees need water. They need additional water because of the drought we are experiencing. These redwood trees are in harm's way. Comments about the building. These buildings are unattractive and they look like they're low rent apartments that don't belong in a residential neighborhood. They do not represent 4 homes at all. They represent a big, massive structure. We suggested at the community meeting all kinds of suggestions and have not seen any consideration of changes, such as altering the roof line so that it doesn't appear like a big straight line from 20 feet in the back to 20 feet in the front. There's no characteristic of this building that represents a transition from R1 homes to an R3 property to El Camino Real. Please respect to the neighborhood.
Thank you. And any additional public comment?
No other raised hands. Oh, I'm sorry. There is one other. David, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and just wait to begin speaking as soon as I start the timer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Okay, you may proceed.
Yes, I wanted to talk about I had the same comments about the aesthetics of the buildings. And basically, I don't want to reiterate what Ken said, but I am in agreement with that. I also wanted to mention about all the drainage that on the property. It appears that according to the plan, it appears that all the drains or all the water from irrigation go into drains, and then they exit out onto Dexter. So all of the water that is used for irrigation winds up on the street and then travels down towards it slants towards the railroad tracks. So this water is being collected and transferred out off the property, used to be absorbed into, I'm sorry, basically what I'm getting at is that the water which could be used for the redwood trees is just being exited off of the property, because the driveway starts right next to the redwood trees, goes 20 feet towards the structures, and that's all concrete, and then the structure is all concrete underneath. Their garages are all concrete. So the property is 75% covered in concrete, and any water that gets onto that concrete travels out towards to the street, to the gutter.
Okay, thank you, David. I don't see any other raised hands at this time, Chair Rodriguez. Oh, okay. Actually, there is one other now. Tim, I'm going to unmute you.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
And yes, thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, this is Tim Heffernan, the civil engineer on the job. And just to address the drainage, we are complying with the county requirement where we are going to infiltrate. So we do have a detention system designed for the site. So while we are increasing the impervious surface, we're not going to affect the peak flow leaving the site with the system that's being installed. There's no below grade system in Dexter, so it will still discharge through the curb, similar to the condition that it does now.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, David. It's fortunately only one comment per agenda item.
Well, I can't comment to what the last person just mentioned about the drainage.
Yeah, unfortunately not. You can submit. Is there a way to still submit public comment on this?
I mean, I would think it would be nice to be able to
have the ability to contact you. They have the community affairs email account, but unfortunately it is only one public comment per agenda item. And so I don't see any new raised hands at this time for this agenda item. And I wanted to just ask, Victor, are there any public comments on the phone line?
Thank you, Sandy. I'm not seeing any at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Chair Rodriguez.
Thank you, Sandy. Yeah. These are difficult issues, obviously, for the council, because particularly, along areas where residential areas meet either light industrial or commercial zoning, there's always a contentious issue. I know this for a fact because I live right at the border of also a residential area with a light industrial area. However, the county is asking for a recommendation on this item, so I can entertain a motion on this item if council feels ready to make a recommendation, or let me know if you have further comment to discuss.
Question for the chair, Ever. So what we're recommending is an approval of the subdivision itself into 4 units, not any, obviously there's no change in zoning. There's no exception to the existing zoning. It's simply, yes, 4 units is appropriate here. Or is that correct?
That seems to be the case, and unfortunately, I guess maybe one last question for Canoa, since this came up as well, is are there any restrictions on the design that the applicant can submit?
Any restrictions?
Right. I mean, because obviously the design came up. So in other words, the apartment complexes are not to the satisfaction of the residents in the surrounding area. So within the restrictions that an applicant has, is there anything in terms of the design that they need to meet whatever requirements?
Not in this area. There's no design review requirements or anything like that in this zone. It's really just it's based on feedback they get from the community, from staff on their design. There are no specific guidelines that they have to adhere to in this zone, at least. But as far as restrictions, it's really just based on the site and what they can do with it. Like they said, they designed it. It's really concentrated in a very specific area, so they don't impact trees. They're putting the driveway in the existing area where it already is, just paving over it. If some of the suggestions that came up would be to separate some of the units, and that would be problematic as far as meeting the setback requirements and development standards, and also protecting those trees. So I think that the design, as it is now, is the best and highest use of the site. But we're always open, to feedback about the aesthetics. They can change, like colors and material choices, things like that. But they're not specifically required to in any of our zoning ordinances.
Okay, if that's the case, Kanoa, why did you bother to send example structures to some of us on the committee?
So I sent some
pictures and said, which ones do you like? Which ones are compatible?
I was trying to get some feedback from you guys. I got quite a few messages about the design, but it wasn't really clear what was wrong with the design, just that it didn't fit. I was trying to get more specific feedback from the community. So my idea was to send photos of other development, tell me and ask what they liked about it and what's specific about it would fit into their community. I was trying to get some feedback on and get to the bottom of what that meant, so that we would have something that would be actionable, that we could actually implement into our into the design. So that's why I sent that out.
Okay, through the chair, I had my hand up, Ever, but nobody's looking at it. Through the chair, I think the county takes a lot of pride in, and neighborhoods take pride also in being active in advocating for their neighborhoods. Selby Park has an active neighborhood association. For me to get the 10 to 15 different comments from individuals regarding what the negative and the positive on this new development, that's a big deal. So I think that, and I want to tell the Selby Park Neighborhood Association, we need to keep staying active and still advocate for the neighborhood. And I'm really hoping that this does not set a precedent in how we work together, because there's going to be other developers coming in, other ideas for new construction or remodeling, whatever. I think that it's in the interest of the neighborhood and the county that we have a relationship with whoever it is, with the planning department, with the developers, with the arborists, so that we reach a balance of what is good for us, but what's also going to work for you guys. You guys meaning developers, arborists, owners. I just want to say that, and that's my 2 cents. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda. I agree with you. I think that as housing continues to be a problem in the entire Bay Area, land is scarce and extremely expensive. So the only way to build more housing is up vertically, and I suspect that all of our neighborhoods are going to be affected in one way or another sooner or later. We have seen several examples of these efforts to build more housing, and those efforts are understood by almost everyone. We know that housing is an issue. Right here in the area where I live, it was proposed a 7-story building that is still in the works, coming up at some point. And in terms of the problems that the residents may face, are parking, traffic, and other issues. But in accordance to the zoning, according to the zoning that we share, that the residents share with the light industrial area, that is still a possibility. And so those are some of the things that we need to be mindful and continue to try to work with each other, like Linda said, with builders, with county, and among residents. So with that, I will entertain a motion from council members for this recommendation.
I'll go, Ever. Recommendation to approve the proposed project at 20 Dexter Avenue as it was presented to us tonight.
And I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Brooks, and thank you, Juan Carlos. And Sandy, if you can take a vote, please.
Yes, sure.
One moment, if I may.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify for the benefit of the council before they take their vote that I've been taking a close look at the board resolution that establishes the North Fair Oaks Council to make sure that we're complying with requirements for disclosure of potential conflicts of interest. And one thing that is clear is that the board requires members of the NFO Council to comply with disclosure requirements of the Political Reform Act. So if anyone on the council either owns or has a leasehold interest, long-term rental of real estate, or has an investment property that is proximate to this site, they should say so in the course of the discussion before voting. So I would ask that before a vote is held, if there are council members that feel they need to disclose a financial interest in a nearby property, that they do so to comply with the board resolution.
I'm seeing a comment here. Councilmember Blair Whitney has disclosed, I rent a 1-bedroom apartment on Buckingham Avenue, about 8 blocks away.
I can assure Councilmember Whitney that that is not close enough to present a conflict of interest under the rules. Okay, you can proceed with the vote. I just wanted to give the members an opportunity to meet the disclosure requirement.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fox. So I'll start roll call. Chair Everardo Rodriguez.
I will abstain.
Vice Chair Juan Carlos Prado.
Yes.
Councilmember Beatriz Cerrillo.
Nay.
Councilmember Linda Lopez.
Nay.
Councilmember Blair Whitney.
Yay.
Councilmember Jennifer Ruiz. Councilmember Joni Gillespie. And Councilmember Brooks Esser.
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Chair Rodriguez, so I have 3 yay, 2 nay, and 1 abstain.
So I believe in this case, Tim, the motion carries.
It does.
Correct? Okay, so the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm sorry that we are running so behind. Let's try to be brief. Do we have a supervisor's report tonight?
Yes. Hi, council members.
Hi, Maggie.
With Supervisor Warren Slocum's office, I just want to tell you briefly, our office is coordinating a vaccination meeting event that is going to happen through Facebook Live. Our partners are Caron, Redwood City 2020, and San Mateo County Health. And some of our speakers, we'll have Councilmember Juan Carlos Prado, a representative of San Mateo County Health, Ravenswood Health Clinic nurse manager. And the purpose of this event, it's going to be all in Spanish. It's going to be for the Spanish-speaking community, is to really talk about what the science behind the vaccine, the rollout plan in San Mateo County for distributing vaccines, and as well as kind of talk about those myths that have been circulating in the community. And that's where our council member Juan Carlos Prado is going to take a role because he's been vaccinated. So just to really talk about his experience and hopefully answer a lot of the questions that the community has. The event will be February 24th at 6 p.m. I'm finalizing the flyer and I should have it ready by tomorrow. And then I can send it out to the council members to distribute to your groups. If there's any questions, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Maggie. We look forward to that program.
Yeah, me too.
Do we have any county managers reports?
Through the chair, good evening, everybody. I think in the interest of time, I don't have any reports, but I'm happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you, Justin. Do we have any council members' reports?
This is Brooks Everardo, and I guess a question for Justin. I was going to mention that the bids had been received for the Middlefield Road project per the NRT meeting from last week. And can we mention the number of bids and the price range? Because I think there's good news there for the council in terms of what we expected the project to cost. If I can't say anything, that would be fine as well.
Why do we care? Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. You know, I think because the award has not been given yet, that we would not disclose it publicly at this point, but it will be agendized on the Board of Supervisors agenda. And I guess I would just say that we received a number of bids, which is always good. You always want to, have a number of people who are interested and want to do the project. And so that will, in all likelihood, be agendized on the February 9th BOS agenda.
Appreciate that, Justin. Thank you.
Anything else, Brooks?
No, thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you very much. So I guess I'll just adjourn the meeting. So thank you, everyone. Sorry for running late, but you know how these things go sometimes.
Yes.
Thank you all for your patience and your collaboration. Much appreciated.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night.
you. Bye.